Welcome to The Brief, a podcast where we're going to be diving into the mind of a very special guest. He's a visionary, but he's also a serial entrepreneur. My name is Cesar Christoforidis. I'm a Roastbrief editorial contributor, and today we have a great pleasure of inviting one of my close friends and an ex-leader, Rezab. Jan is the current CEO of a company called Rezab, a leader in competitive ad tech and some creator economy intelligence. But we're going to focus primarily today on Jan's whole career journey, his leadership, philosophy, and some of the lessons learned. Welcome, Jan.
Hello, Cesar. Nice to see you again.
Yes, likewise. And you're not shouting at me for MRR, which is always nice. So great to have you on here, Jan. We're gonna just warm up with some quick fire questions, okay? So this is just to get the juices going before we get into some of the tearful memories. So let's start with these five. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Biggest myth in social media marketing.
Fake engagement doesn't exist.
One book or podcast which every marketeer should check out.
Everything from Rory Sutherland from Ogilvy.
If you could use one media platform, which one would it be?
Instagram.
Okay. You can elaborate on these last two. So in your point of view now, which brand right now is absolutely killing it on social media?
So I would say in general beauty brands, and I don't want to be specific because they're all doing extremely well, the L'Oreals of the world, but who's really killing it is e-commerce and retailers. When I left social media 4 years ago, when we sold the company, Social Bakers, retailers had this little presence on social media. Today, they're the number one advertiser alongside e-commerce brands, which are obviously, kind of all about conversion, and they're doing some amazing things. So retailers also.
Awesome. We'll dive into that. I think that's going to be quite interesting for our listeners today. And last of all, one piece of advice you would give a brand starting their marketing and automation journey, i.e. AI.
For me, the one advice would be, if you're a leader, give your people half a day or a day off every week for learning these AI tools. This wave is coming one way or another. It's unstoppable. And we're playing around with it quite a lot. And who's not going to learn this is going to be so left behind. And the other kind of sub piece of advice of that is AI is really good at creation, but what it's actually really amazing at is summarization and analysis. So meaning you can send 5 million ads into summarization engine, and it'll basically give you the insight you're looking for, and you don't have to check 5 million ads.
I think that's sound advice. So Jan, why don't we rewind back probably a decade and a bit. I remember when I first met you in 2012, you were barely into your 20s and already the leader of a global social media analytics company. But how did it all start? Can you tell us a little bit about how you got there?
So it's 2025 now. It was in I think October of 2008, which is 16 years ago, where we basically sat down with my amazing co-founders, which were all kind of product and tech, but with overlap into business. And we said, look, the social media thing is becoming big, but Facebook just months before that announced 1 million users globally, right? That's a funny joke, right? And it went from 1 to 10 to very short periods of time about this social media stuff. It's becoming big.
And yeah, and was there anybody that mentored you into, making that big decision of going all in on social? Who was it that really encouraged you to build that business?
I think it wasn't a mentor, because I don't think anyone understood social. I don't think we even had it named at the time. It was just MySpace and Facebook. There's these new media. I don't know when we started calling it social media, but I don't think at the time the term was kind of being coiled in, right? But really, I think I was really following Mark Zuckerberg. I enjoyed his vision a lot, and he kind of, his words out convinced me that this is kind of the next big thing, really.
And how did you guys come up with the name for the company? How many iterations did you have?
Well, it was kind of, the original company name was called Candy Tech, which was a little, funny and weird. And then we said, we got to build like a, product. And the product was called Face Bakers. But at one nice evening, kind of a few months after we launched that product, Facebook called us up and they're like, guys, we patented the word face. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? You can't patent the word face. I mean, it's a pretty generic name. And we looked at it and they really did trademark and validly the word face. For any tech company, you can't use the word face. So that was kind of funny. And so we ended up, thankfully, renaming the company to Social Bakers.
Wow, that makes sense. And hence why Face Party disappeared off the face of the earth.
And by the way, Facebook ended up choosing one of the names. So the other option, which no one knows today, it was Ace Bakers.
Okay.
I'm really glad we didn't call it that.
No, well, look, I think you made the right choice and you made a household name and you created this massive demand for people wanting to know something which was considered quite a dark art. Tell us a little bit about your challenges as a young entrepreneur. What are the things that you were stumbling upon that kind of held some of those growth levers back?
Well, I think, it was coming up on my third company, even though I was basically 21 years old. And it was, there's a lot you don't know at 21, right? So, I mean, you do it by applying a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and a lot of time spent. So, I mean, when we started the company, it was just, kind of one step to another. We worked and hustled 16, 18, 20 hours a day for a long period of time before we kind of put it up. We built the company organically at first. We kind of got the first, almost €1 million of kind of revenue on the product side on our own, and it was starting to fly up. So we took in VC money and started scaling the business. And I think, as you know, you were one of our first, I think, 2 employees out of Czech Republic, out of the Prague office, right? Scaling's hard. You've been with us through that journey for the majority, or almost all, if not all, of that scaling. So yeah.
I was quite lucky when I came in, because you've already established some really good investors behind the business. And I'm wondering, Jan, some of the things that our listeners want to learn is, was there any particular hardship where you felt maybe you wanted just not to go ahead with it? Maybe there was like a massive blockage where it almost made it impossible for you to continue. Did you ever have any of those moments?
I think that all the time, right? I mean, when we were fundraising the second and third time around, kind of very few people, I think single-digit amount of people knew that we were really close to running out of money. So there are challenges. I mean, even kind of Facebook at the time, it was kind of figuring out how we fit into the ecosystem, because they've never heard of social media analytics, right? They heard of, oh, they are our ads partners, but what value do analytics bring in the ecosystem? I mean, you can ask the TV industry, without Nielsen, they wouldn't be invoicing money for ads. So of course you need measurement, you need analytics, you need insights, and even more so, you need them now, right? With everything that's happening. So I feel right now like I've left off, and we had a lot of innovation. We brought the world lots of innovation when it comes to social media analytics, right? When it comes to how to measure it, how to integrate it. But I feel like now the industry hit pause button for 4 years and nobody innovated anything. And we're kind of, I'm trying to I got back into the business because I want to change that. I want to kind of continue with not only social media. I think now it's a little bigger, right? It's just marketing essentially, because 70-80% of time spent is on social and digital online platforms. And I know what you would call YouTube. Is YouTube a social platform? Is it a content platform, video platform? I consider it a social platform, right? But yeah.
Yeah, I think, this short form consumption has almost forced YouTube to play in those games, right? So I think there'll be, for the first time, lots of executives in YouTube talking about shorts. So I think it's definitely, there's some convergence there. Talk to us a little bit about scaling up. It's the hardest. What is it about your leadership that helped a company like Social Bakers become global?
Well, I think ultimately we did a number of things well. I think setting up the kind of the portal that really was the go-to for marketers all around the world, socialbakers.com, where literally the website had 1 million visits. We probably, helped. If I would quantify that ROI for the social media platforms, it'd probably be in the, very high billions of how we helped scale that, which would today, per year, which today would be in the tens of billions dollars for them. So, I mean, we helped scale up by bringing social to marketers, not only in the US. The funny mistake of oftentimes Americans is the American centrics of the world of US folks is there's not much going on, but actually what we saw was creativity in Europe, creativity in Latam, in Brazilian campaigns. I mean, I remember the time where the headquarters of Heineken was looking at what Heineken Brazil was doing and then adopted, similar methods because they were just so inspired. And I think we used these product-led growth approaches, whatever you would call them now, building that portal, building that brand name, and started scaling it through that. And of course, scaling was then a matter of also bringing a lot of local presence. Not every client, almost no client was on Zoom at the time, or Teams, or Google Meet. They were all kind of very, very offline. So if you wanted to sell to these big enterprises and big telcos and banks and Procter & Gamble, so the Unilevers, Nestle's of the world, you have to jump on a plane or be there physically, have an office, which is, as you know, what we did. Started opening all the way to 16 offices around the world, and bringing local presence, bringing local folks. So that was tough and cost a lot of money to scale that. But I think we did a great job and kind of, took the company pretty quickly from 2, 3, 4, 5 million euro company to where it was when we sold it almost 4.5 years ago.
How much of that methodology do you think is applicable today? Like, having foot soldiers on the ground, having, a website that helps marketeers, almost like a freemium area. Do you think those are still quite essential to scale up to this, nowadays?
I think freemium is more important, than it absolutely ever was. I mean, trials, try before you buy, different kind of giving the people some value before you want to go. I don't necessarily believe in that kind of white paper era. You send them a piece of content, they will sign up for. I think that's kind of gone. You have to give them value through a usable premium product, like something they can actually use and then upsell it. I mean, OpenAI does it, right? You have a free product, you quickly run out of these credits or kind of want to pay more. So I think that's something that's not changed. I think having the foot soldiers, as you said, on the ground, that's changed a little bit. I think you need less of them, but you do need them. But you need them in like the time zone and the language and the culture rather than in person. For me, what's changed is I used to travel every week, once or twice every week in a new country, even a new continent. Often it would actually average out on one continental shift per week, which is crazy. And currently, like, you need to do that once every quarter or twice a quarter, and just kind of do a client run and do the relationship run, have a lunch or dinner with your clients, have a longer workshop. That works better, and is the rest you can do on Teams, which actually is far more time efficient.
Yeah, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs are embracing that, less capex intensive expenditure when scaling up. So tell us a little bit about what you're up to. What's your vision? And you said you've had 4 years off. You'll be happy to know that those countries like the Brazil and places in APAC are still moving the needle. I mean, when you look at all of the awards, the one at Cannes, a lot of them were brands from what you would call back then emerging markets. But not a lot has changed, Jan. But tell us a little bit more about your vision and how you want to change, people's perspective with what you're building.
So I think that when we were deciding as a team to go back into marketing and social, obviously one of the greatest things that played a factor was the launch of these new AI models, Gen AI models, from ChatGPT to Gemini to countless others at the moment. And we kind of, even though we started before many of the models that we use today were even not available, we kind of knew, okay, they're gonna have these capabilities. And even today, there are models that don't exist, that we know will exist in weeks or months' time, that we're already building a product for. So for me, it's about two things. Essentially, getting data closer to decision makers. Because what I believe happened in social and marketing and TV is really weird. People stopped looking at numbers a lot. And that's why I also said Rory Sutherland, because Rory's actually almost anti-number, because he said, creative matters first, which I think that's why I said it, because you can't do numbers without matching it with good campaigns. You can't throw money at something and expect it to really start sticking if you don't have a good, good content with it. And so often people, forget this in numbers. And influencer marketing, which we're into a lot, and I think we chose that as one of the first verticals we are doing analytics around, is first off, like, the vertical was completely like stalled. No one innovated anything. So today, if you buy any influencer analytics tool from $400 a month to $5,000 a month, it'll basically not give you anything. It'll give you like an overview of engagement, but actually it does. None of them look at and analyze the content of those influencers. So when an influencer, for example, logs into Ravineo and connects it with the brands, the brand actually sees all of the cooperations, even the ones that, for example, 80% of cooperations are not declared. So they're not the official in-paid partnerships that are marked. They should be, but the bigger the celebrity, the less markings there are. So I think this is something where we looked at this and it's like, this is wild, wild west. Essentially, these tools are capturing 20% of half of the content, meaning all of their reporting is absolutely out of whack. Plus, there's a lot of it. To do influencer marketing right, kind of 70-80% of companies are not doing it right and are not understanding it. And we want to bring that, and you almost can't do that without Gen AI, because you need to use it to summarize what's going on. There's not a single CMO or even head of digital marketing that can look at, if they scale up influencer marketing, they use, I mean, imagine these numbers, right? Companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, LVMH, L'Oreal, etc., they wouldn't be working with thousands of influencers. It'd be tens to even small hundreds of thousands of influencers. Right? So imagine that scale in terms of numbers. How can a CMO then understand, is my brand on message? We essentially outsourced our marketing to these folks of different varieties. Am I on message? No idea.
Again, you must have seen the new CEO of Unilever. He's not new to Unilever. He's been there for 20 years. He comes from a financial background. It must have been quite refreshing for the market to see that he's gonna up his spend on the creator economy by 20, a factor of 20. What do you think gives him that confidence, and what do you think that a conglomerate like Unilever must be thinking about in terms of safeguarding? What do you think about that motion?
I think it's an absolutely sensible thing to do, because the ROI, I mean, of the Unilever, of the influencer creator economy is just huge comparatively to traditional advertising. That's not to say you should stop advertising on a social media platform. That's that you should mix it correctly. And now, I mean, most people ignore this kind of new thing where if an influencer marks the in-paid partnerships, the brand actually can, in addition to the organic audience of that influencer, can promote it on top. And I think there are so many integrated strategies that can be applied that are absolutely new, that what we've seen just throughout our kind of hundreds of clients, only tens of them do it, and only a single-digit amount of them do it correctly, and that's a good statistical sample. And Unilever is just starting. They figured out a lot of their competitors in different verticals are actually starting to do it pretty well, and they're behind. So it's a good statement, and Hein kind of sees it well, I would say.
Now, going back to one of these people that we must follow, and I really love Rory Sutherland. I've seen him at MadFest a couple of times. He's all about creative first. How do you emphasize on that when you still see a lot of disjointed teams where strategists don't necessarily speak to the media team? Where is that workflow broken, and how can you keep sort of that creative first in the whole journey of the marketing execution? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's always been my opinion that, and I remember a slide back at our Engage conference, several years ago, where there was a wall between the content makers and the media makers, and I said, let's tear down that wall. But the wall's still there. And I think what takes it down is ultimately data. But as I mentioned, how do you do that in a moment where, if you have 100,000, imagine you have 100,000 influencer corporation as a company. Now today, what's an influencer corporation look like? Usually you sign them on with, Instagram, then TikTok, then, some YouTube maybe. But, practically speaking, you don't pay for one video. You pay for 2, 3 Instagram reels, 5, 10, 15 stories, 3, 4 TikToks. That's it. That's the package, which means you just generated 2-3 million pieces of content. So how do you get that back to the teams that are executing media and strategy and content? Well, that's difficult. A lot of companies have been bridging that through events, through bringing the influencers, sending them over, doing experiences with them so they can control, the narrative, control the creative, which is a very clever way of doing that and of bridging that. But I think more creative experiential ways are coming of kind of doing this, and I think that what can bridge that is, as I mentioned, data, because you can't it's for the first time that we can have generative AI actually watch video for us, meaning Ravineo is the first and only influencer analytics platform that has the capability of watching an influencer video, which at the end of the day means we know that if the brand was audibly mentioned, hey, mention Coca-Cola, was Coca-Cola mentioned in passing, or was it mentioned, directly? And we created a brand prominence index based on that. And also in what context and sentiment is the brand saying, meaning is it on message? Then I think that's just, amazing what you can do. So I think that will end up helping bridge this, together.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Very, very powerful. With the whole, generative AI coming into play, finding efficiencies, like you're saying, you shoot one video and that video can be cut up into 10, 20, 30 pieces of content. What do you feel is a good mix? Because I think people can detect if it's not real human versus Gen AI. But at the same time, agencies that are looking for efficiency, so brands, they're not spending like $500,000 on a 1 minute video. What do you feel is gonna happen in the marketplace, and do you think that there's gonna be like a healthy balance between Gen AI and real human creators?
Well, I think that this is a big question, right? And I do believe for sure there'll be a ton of Gen AI virtual, completely celebrities almost, right? But ultimately, who hits the publish button? We're not going to let an AI like completely self-run, right? That's called something else. But so I think at the end of the day, this is moderated by humans, so whilst this might be some content that is AI created, a human moderates and creates the strategy, even though they still do it with Gen AI. So yeah, I think that brands should play around with that. Brands should have and try their virtual kind of celebrities, and they have it more in control. But that's not to say you you must mix it with people. I mean, because at the end of the day, like if you have an event and somebody will be recommending something, you're not going to have the virtual influencer, right? If you have a musician that does a concert, people are not going to come to a concert of a Gen AI, thing, maybe later, but probably not now, right? So yeah, I feel like it's a mix. I would always, as you know, Caesar, for me, I would always experiment, right? Being a brand, I would always recommend experimentation, playing around. But at the same time, I would recommend focus. And a lot of the times this has to be created into like a proper practice. And I think that if I look at a lot of the influencer practices we've seen, they're not kind of done in the way they should be yet. Only a couple companies have really cracked it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I want to rewind back to something that you mentioned at the beginning in your quickfire. You said that the brands that are killing it are either in beauty or fashion. I have a hypothesis. I wanted to validate it with you. Do you feel it's because A, they've been doing it the longest, but B, for me, is because they're starting to entertain through their content? What are your thoughts as to why they're killing it?
Well, I think they've realized that if you harbor a certain kind of profile on social media through these influencers, you can quickly kind of steer multiple of your brands into areas, right? And I think they've done it first, but I think it's just a sheer ROI, and I think they've realized, and influencer marketing today is still very efficient and cheap, right? Personally, I envision that Meta will have the idea, okay, let's throttle down reach for many of this branded content, because there are influencers with like 60% of their content is advertising. And if now they have to, of course, be careful. If they do that too much, people are going to move to TikTok. They're going to ask all of their audience to go there too. right? But at the same time, is it right to have 60% of all your content as ads? Oof, you know, so I think there's a balance that'll have to be struck between the creators, the platforms, and right now, I don't think it's fair to the platforms. Like, you know, like these, essentially, if you imagine a news feed on Instagram, if you imagine every third to fifth post is an ad by Facebook and they're making money on that. Well, the rest is, most of it is strangers and influencers, right? It's been studied that like 70-80% of feed are people that are not your friends, that are basically influencers, celebrities. And half of their content, if it's paid, the percentage of paid reach is higher amongst influencers than it is for Facebook. So your Facebook, you're sitting there is like, they're making all the money. And our revenue is basically barely beating inflation, our revenue growth. So, but that industry is multi-billion euros and growing, multiplying almost, one would say. So yeah, that'll be a very interesting future to look at. And coming back to beauty and fashion, I also think they're visual companies, and they fundamentally need video. And I don't think they can produce it as well as many of these influencers actually can at that scale, locally, in all these languages. So a very efficient way for them to do it.
Yeah, no, of course, good point. Now, if we step a little bit away, I think what's always good to learn from young entrepreneurs is some of your daily habits. So how do you keep ultra productive in this AI driven world?
So I mean, I personally run a ton of AI agents, threads, conversation. I don't think that today, if I look at my email, my messaging, my calendaring, my campaigning, my marketing, my business, my network management, and my notes management, all of it has AI, and is being used by AI. I mean, back at Social Bakers, we used to check, okay, how do our users use our platform? Did they go deep? And you check the log, you check the video, you check like what were they looking for? And you'd be guessing. The AI guesses very efficiently. It's like, hey, your client's brand XYZ or agency XYZ was looking at a fall campaign probably revolving around this. They were clicking a lot on the competitors. So like they're probably looking at a fall campaign that revolved around makeup or something. And this saves so much time that it makes, me productive. Like I would say I'm a pretty productive person. I used to always say I'd probably operate as a couple people because of speed, because of effort, and because I do it more hours also. And so, but with AI, you multiply that by 5 to 10, and you can, like, one engineer can be worth 5-10 engineers today. And that's powerful, which means currently Raveneo has a team of over 20 engineers. And I mean, with the power of what I would say the biggest amount of engineers at Social Bakers that we've ever had. And you have the efficiency of having small teams that don't have to coordinate amongst each other too much.
Wow. No, that's a huge insight. And Jan, I mean, you're obviously looking around. I remember you talking about your productivity hacks at the Web Summit a couple of years ago in Lisbon. But tell us what makes you most excited about what's coming up. It doesn't have to be related to, social ad tech, but is there any sort of technology that you got your eyes on right now?
Well, I think automating sales, but automating it on absolutely both sides. Meaning, if you start automating sales on client side, sell side, right? You're trying to sell as many things as you can. You're essentially going to shut the door because you're going to overwhelm these people. And like, I talk to marketers that get 30 to 100 offers a day of different tool 1, tool 2, tool 3. And it's almost dumb. And of course, if you add AI, it'll start getting smarter and smarter and smarter. But I think the ultimate, and we're coming into almost a sales marketplace, right? Like, I will tell my AI as a marketer what I'm actually looking for. And like, the other people will tell and try and sell. So the AI will sell the AI. And then for me as a marketer, let's say I'm a CMO of Unilever, it'll make me an executive summary of like, what were my needs versus what we were offered. And it'll make a pre-selection of that. So I think AI needs to be present on both sides. And currently, unfortunately, we are only seeing it evolve on the selling side, which I think is extremely dangerous and can lead to actually massive inefficiency, right, when actually selling.
Yeah. Look, I feel that journey has already begun, Jan. I feel that from the people that I've been speaking to, also CEOs like yourself, what they find is that the sales cycle from particular buyer personas that you would call slightly older Gen Z now in management, 60 to 70% of the buying cycle is complete. They only come to you because they can't find it for themselves. They can't see enough social proof, or they want to close. They've made up their mind. Do you feel that journey is going to be, at 80 or 90% by the time they come to speak to you? And how soon, the SaaS leaders need to prepare for that?
Well, I think they need to start preparing for it yesterday. So, if you're going to ask your ChatGPT and Gen AI to analyze what are the top, influencer analytics tools in the world, and you're not kind of on there, you have a bit of a problem, right? So Gen AI SEO is the new SEO, right? Like prompt engine optimization or whatever we would call it. I don't think it's starting to, the names are starting to catch up slowly now. But I think that's absolutely critical. And I do agree with you. 70-80% of that buying cycle is somewhere else already. I think companies are making better and better material around their content. They're learning to speak the language of their clients. What used to take a marketing or product marketing team of 5 to 10 to prepare materials around, demos, materials, PDFs. Currently, you can do it with a 1-2 person part-time with 3-4 AI tools, and it's all done and it's most updated. With one click there, it updates it in all of those texts. Messaging can get updated almost in real time. So yeah, I think it's about that. It's about getting stuff out there and having it in the hands of marketers. For example, in Ravineo, we are going to release very imminently kind of free My Analytics tools with insane levels of AI summaries. So basically, we are training like a marketer, an AI marketer, and we want every marketer from CEO and CMO, and I specifically said CEO, down to the junior analyst, to have their own set of AI assistants that are functional and edited and custom tailored to them, their function, their company, and their industry. And we've been playing around with this now for a year. The models that come into it from a perspective of benchmarking, from a perspective of best practices, we keep feeding it best practices, and obviously those keep changing. So basically, we have trend spotting in our AI algorithms to see different new strategies that are being employed. Are the companies doing longer campaigns, shorter? Are they similar creative? Are they very different? What's the influencer mix? And we know we built a platform that currently knows everything, right? So it takes your data and you put in your data, and it basically automatically would start telling you, look, this is how you should start improving.
And I think that's the key, Jan, right? Because as generations progress, the generations at the top tend to stay a little bit longer, right? So it's those are the ones that we've always struggled to speak in their words. But I think if you have, this agentic solution which transforms or translates what they're seeing in the data to their language, which is commonly NPS and share of wallet, which is super important at the board level. I think that you've got an important point there. So as we wrap up, Jan, tell us a little bit about, that one piece of advice that you wish you'd received earlier?
I mean, I had the great fortune of having an amazing set of people around us to give us advice almost all the time in so many areas, from events to operations to finance to fundraising to building the companies. I guess the Social Baker's biggest failure was always its US presence and lack of being number one on that market. And ultimately, that's what cost the company being number one in the world. I mean, not that it's bad that it's now number 3 or 4 in the world. And by the way, basically the new Social Baker's name, it's Amplify, and it won. And the same team built this, right? Number 1 social suite by Forrester, and it finally beat Sprinkler because it's the best tech. But the one piece of advice is you don't have to build the best tech. You should. You don't have to. You have to be first to market and first being adopted by the clients. And I wish I focused more on that as opposed to the best tech.
Very sound piece of advice. Doesn't it go something like, perfection is the enemy of progress?
Yeah.
Something or
I think it's perfect as the enemy of good. Yeah.
No, it's been awesome to have you, Jan. If people want to follow you, what's the best way to keep up to date with your visions?
Well, I think I'm shadow banned on X, so maybe if people can help unshadow ban me by engaging with me a lot more. I think I'm looking for my go-to business platform, but probably follow me on LinkedIn. I think that's where I get a lot of most reach and biggest audience there.
We hope to have you back very soon, and can't wait to hear more about how your business evolves, and best of luck.
Thank you. Looking forward to giving you more updates.